Welcome back to another episode of Out of Bounds. This is episode 20, I think. Yes, it is. Today, we're going to dive a little deeper in the topic of mental health. Let's get the ball rolling. Welcome back to another episode. This is episode 20. I am your host, Danell Leyva. And like I said, today we're going to dive a little deeper into mental health. And actually, I wanted to talk about something that I kind of forgot to talk about last week. We were talking about pros and cons and the differences between being an actor and being an athlete. And I totally forgot the financial side of it. The biggest difference between being an athlete and being an actor, and especially being an athlete who does an Olympic sport that is essentially really only popular every 4 years or so, and even other sports that are in the Olympics that aren't even really that popular, like say fencing. There's sometimes this misconception that just because you made it to the Olympics or just because you got an Olympic medal that you're going to have all this money, right? People sometimes tend to lump in success with money, and for most Olympic athletes, that is definitely not the case, you know? As an American Olympic athlete especially, we do get bonuses and we do, get some money for winning medals, but there are some sports that they do, I don't know how many days of competition, and they only have the possibility to win a single medal, which means they only have the possibility to win that bonus once. And then instead you have, a sport like swimming or gymnastics, where you have so many chances to win so many medals in the exact same Olympic year. For me, I won two Olympic medals in 2016. My good friend Cammie Craig, who was on an earlier episode, here's a link, she won 3 medals, but she went to 3 separate Olympics, So there are certain sports where, like baseball, basketball, very obviously famous. If you're in the league, whatever the major league is, you can win a lot of money, right? If you're an actor and you make it, you can win a lot of money. But I feel like there's very similar struggles, right? If you're not at the absolute top of your game, or if you're not an incredibly famous athlete, you tend to have money problems, right? And you tend to struggle. And that is a perfect segue to what we're talking about today, which is mental health. And for me, especially after I retired, one of the biggest points of anxiety for me was dealing with money and money problems and all that sort of terrible situation that most people are in right now, thanks to the wonderful year that is 2020. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. One of the main reasons why I kind of struggle with the whole aspect of pursuing a career in acting is that a lot of people tend to kind of see that path, or they tend to see my reason behind wanting to be an actor as just wanting to be famous or wanting to make a lot of money. And although it is a very amazing benefit and a very amazing plus that comes along with it, that is not the driving force for me, But that's not what we're talking about this week. What we're talking about this week is more so how most actors, especially actors that are starting off, and most athletes, and especially now, like I know one person who the main point of conflict for her of deciding whether or not she wants to even try out for the 2021 Olympics is money, and it's really difficult, and that can absolutely interrupt and interfere in your performance as an actor, as an athlete, even in life. Even if you don't do any of that, it could really cause a really big dent in your life, right? And of course, like I've said so many different and separate times, the best way to help deal with all these things, and it's kind of going to be the button of this entire episode, is going to therapy. That is the best way that you're going to be able to deal with any and all of your mental health problems, right? And of course, finding the things that make you almost feel like you're at this escape. You're at this point or this moment, this small experience in your life where you feel that you are truly escaping and you feel that you're kind of relieving that sense of anxiety or relieving that sense of kind of struggle, even if it's just for a moment, right? And if you're an athlete right now, you got to determine whether or not that same sport is what's causing the most amount of anxiety, or if it's helping you reach that point of fulfillment or that point of relief, right? You gotta try and find out whether or not the sport that you're doing is what's actually serving you mentally. For me, it definitely wasn't that towards the end of my career. It was really tough having to deal with all of that, like anxiety and all the pressure of just making sure that I needed to make it and I needed to prove to myself and to other people who I was, or that I was worth it, or that I was good enough. It was only in very small specific moments where I was talking to my mom or something. And even then, at that point, it never truly like sunk in. She would always try and remind me of the reason why I was in the sport to begin with, and the reason why I was doing everything. And thanks to that, I was able to end up doing the thing that I wanted to do the way that I wanted to do it. But still, it's tough. And a lot of times when it's somebody like your mom or somebody that knows you for a long time and they try and give you some sort of advice, it's almost an expected feeling. We almost don't take the advice because we're just like, yeah, I know what you're going to say. But you gotta learn how to like take a step back and look at it in the way that they're there to try to actually help you. And they're probably there because they've experienced exactly what you're experiencing right now. I can't remember where I saw it, but there's this thing where, I remember, I was watching this gamer on Twitch, and he was talking about how as teenagers we're always like, you don't understand, to our parents. We swear up and down that they'll never understand what it is that we're going through. And once we start getting older, we're just like, oh, they absolutely did. They understood everything and they knew exactly what was going on the whole time. But like I said, it's that whole standing too close to the elephant phenomena, right? Like you don't really see it's an elephant until you take a step back. And all of this that I'm talking about isn't only just, it doesn't only apply to people who are on an elite level of any sport, but especially gymnastics, and kind of like what I was talking about last week. Sometimes we set a sort of expectation on ourselves and we have other people's expectations, and that causes us a lot of anxiety and a lot of like mental anguish, if you will, right? And the best way to kind of handle that and deal with it and process it is talking about it, and it's terrifying. It really, really is terrifying to be strong enough to actually verbalize whatever it is that you're feeling, to actually verbalize your emotions, right? But it's the only way that you're going to be able to move forward and move past that kind of moment of doubt, that moment of insecurity, that moment of struggle, right? And if we don't have that, then we can't move forward. Be open to opening yourself up. And again, like I say, if the sport that you're doing is what is making you feel good, then definitely do that. I mentioned that gymnastics, especially towards the end of my career, wasn't that. And I had to find other avenues to help me feel that small moment of relief, and like I've said before, for me it was things like playing video games, listening to music a bunch, watching movies. And the one thing that really even to this day really just completely takes me out of the world and everything melts away and there's only that in that moment is playing soccer, playing football. I have truly found my true escape. Whenever I play soccer, whenever I play with a group of people, even if I don't know them, you just put a ball on the ground and you roll it to somebody, and then you get a group of like 6 people and you play like a game. It's just everything just washes away, and it's an incredible feeling for me. So you have to find that moment, and it could literally be anything. It could be writing, it could be painting. There was a point that I was painting, and I've never taken a single art class. I've never taken a drawing or painting class. I would just do it, right? And it was bad. A lot of times it was bad. Sometimes it was better than others. But the point isn't to try and sell it, The point is just to find something that will make you feel that sigh, that like, or make everything around you kind of melt away. And now, more than ever, this year in 2020, finding that is so important. It is literally crucial, right? Because there are moments where we're just going to be sitting around overthinking everything. And the problem with that is that, and I've mentioned this before, once we keep our own thoughts in our head, everything becomes very muddled. Everything becomes very gray and very blurred. and distorted, right? And it's only once we start actually talking about the things is that we hear ourselves and we're just like, oh, this is the answer. And that's why I mentioned therapy. And I've mentioned it so many times before, but I'm going to continue to mention it until everybody goes to therapy, because it's amazing. Because not the therapist doesn't have the cure, and I said that before, but they allow you to speak to yourself almost. And then they help you out, here and there. They'll help you connect the dots here and there and remind you of something that you'll probably have suppressed in your life. And you'll be like, oh, wow. And everything will make sense. But more than anything, it's just you listening to yourself and being like, oh. And here's the thing. The reason why I kind of try and push therapy and counseling and just talking to somebody so much is because I didn't have that. And I feel like if I would have had that in my career as a gymnast, maybe I would have had even more success, right? For me, it was a very, not unhealthy, but it was just a very just blissfully ignorant way of dealing with my own anxiety and dealing with what it was that I was dealing with, right? I would just try and completely forget it, completely shut it down and move forward and pretend like, nope, everything's fine. I'm going to keep going. And it was great in that moment and in that moment only. It never really served me afterward. The thing that has served me now in my everyday life is, yes, being able to look back and figuring out how did I get through this specific moment. Those moments have definitely helped me out. But I'm still dealing with so many things that I've repressed because I didn't understand that I needed to process whatever it was that I was feeling in the moment before actually moving on. And if I would have done that, I feel like I would have been in a much better place now. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm unsure. And I feel like that's kind of just the whole struggle of life. Once we start getting locked into the what ifs, we never really find a way to get out. But it's not about dwelling in the past, and it's not about only anticipating the future. It's about accepting what happened to be able to move forward and using what will happen as a driving force, but still finding a way to balance how you remain present. One of the best quotes for me, it's my favorite quote. It's funny because I almost get embarrassed talking about it because it comes from an animated movie. It's literally from Kung Fu Panda, but it's like the most profound quote. And it's the past is history, the future is a mystery, today is a gift, and that's why it's called the present. And reminding yourself of that as often as possible, especially in those moments where we're going back and forth with the past, or we're going back and forth with what will come, what's going to happen. It's the best way to be able to just stop yourself, take a deep breath, and move forward. And here's the thing. I always talk about and promote, go to therapy, do this, do that. And today I thought it would be kind of a smart idea to maybe get a little more specific about the sort of things that I did, right? That helped me with my anxiety, especially during my career. The thing that helped me the most, and the thing that helps me now as an actor, is breathing techniques, finding very specific breathing techniques that were helpful to me. As a gymnast, there are moments where, and as an athlete, there are moments where our anxiety or our nerves builds up in some part of our body. Although it comes from our head, it manifests itself in some form within our body, and it's something that we feel, and it's very powerful. For me, it was always around my stomach, chest area, in that middle area. And so I had to find certain breathing techniques to breathe into that feeling and exhale and release it to the extent that I needed it, right? Whenever I was in competition, when I was just sitting down, I would breathe in and breathe out really really, really loud like that to try and release it completely. But right before I was going to go, or as I was right in front of the event, right before raising my hand to the judge, I would breathe into whatever spot it was and only breathe out the amount that I didn't want. Right? I would try and find that perfect balance of how much energy do I need and where can I get it from this kind of sense of nerves that I was feeling. And that for me was always the best, most useful breathing technique that helped me out. And I know my friend / producer, Sarah, she mentioned something called box breathing. And I think it's very specific to yoga. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked into it fully. But again, you got to find whatever it is that's specific and whatever works for you specifically. Because like I said last week, right? Although a lot of us always get very similar situations and very similar problems, we process it and we have to deal with it very differently. So like I said, For me, the way that I used to do the breathing techniques to just relax, to just try and like release everything, or no, I would also use it to try and find that balance of where I needed that nervous energy to go. And I would switch it up, whatever I felt was working the best. I would just breathe in for like 4 breaths and then breathe out for 6. That's just the way that I would do it. But I think the box breathing version of it is you literally think of it like a box, and then you breathe in 4 seconds, hold it 4 seconds, breathe out 4 seconds, hold that for 4 seconds. And it's used in yoga and meditation. And yeah, maybe that'll work for you. Hopefully it does. I used to do the 4-6 because the way that I was taught, I can't remember who it was that taught me, they said something about the best way to reach the ideal heart rate is to breathe. I think it was breathe for 10 seconds for an entire minute. I can't remember why, but specifically breathing for exactly 10 seconds for 1 minute gets your heartbeat exactly where it is that you want it / need it, whatever. It was some technique I think that archers used or like Olympic shooters used. Can't remember why. I just remember the 6-4 thing that was very useful to me. There's a lot that we all go through and a lot that a lot of people don't even know that a specific person is going through. I was watching the Fresh Prince reunion. He brought on the original Aunt Viv, and they sat and had a conversation about exactly what it was that happened. And although Will at the time he was a young kid, he was like early 20s or something like that. But Janet Hubert was dealing with something very personal things, very, very personal things that nobody knew about, because of course she was trying to be professional. She was trying to do her job, and she was doing it swimmingly. She was doing it amazingly, right? But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure, that he mentions it, but Will took it personally because he was the star of the show. He was like, the diva at the time. And he said, he apologizes. And it's great. It was a wonderful moment. Janet is like talking and normally, where that sort of person will try and charm their way out of it or excuse their behavior or something. Will just kind of like sat there silent and allowed her to speak. And he just said, I know, I'm sorry. That's amazing. But I bring that up to say that a lot of us deal with things that we deal with in silence. And for me, I myself have dealt with so many things in silence because, of course, especially growing up as a cisgendered man, we have these kind of set standards that we're not supposed to feel certain ways, or we have to be a man, whatever the fuck that means. But for me, in 2018 especially, I dealt with some like really bad depression. It wasn't actually, thankfully, it wasn't really bad. It was depression. It was to the point where, and by the way, I had no idea. I genuinely had no idea. I just thought that I didn't know what was going on. I really didn't. I was just like, I was just feeling off for months at a time. But I was not motivated at all to do any of the things that I actually enjoyed doing. The only thing that I was trying to do to use as a coping mechanism was I dove headfirst into playing video games. And the reason why I only figured this out much later in therapy was because I was trying to find any sort of feeling of accomplishment. I was trying to find anything where I felt that I was starting and finishing something, that I was actually accomplishing something, because something had just happened where I had lost a job, an acting job, and it completely destroyed me because the whole time, since late 2017, things started to really pile up with family and other personal things that were happening. And that was just, the straw that broke the camel's back, whatever. I don't know all of the idioms and all of the phrases, okay? Last week I said something about the drop of a dime, and that's not it at all, but whatever, that's what we're saying now. The point is, the reason why I didn't know how to comfortably and efficiently deal with it was because I had no idea what was actually going on, because I wasn't talking to anybody about it. I wasn't actually verbalizing the things that I was experiencing. And if I would have, I probably would have gotten out of it, or probably just would have learned how to deal with it and process it much earlier than what I did. It was really difficult. And still to this day, there's a couple moments, when something happens that obviously trigger it, it sucks. I can easily slip back into the same habits, but instead, because I have the tools on how to deal with it now, it has made, and here's the thing, it actually has not made it easier. It has just made me stronger, right? The weights never get lighter. You become stronger. Your muscles grow. That's all that it is. It's the same thing with therapy. Nothing ever gets easier. You just become stronger. And that's the point. And that's my whole point of this entire podcast. Do the thing. Go to therapy or talk to somebody about going to therapy. Talk to anybody about what it is that you're feeling. I promise it'll make a massive, massive difference. Like I mentioned early on in the episode, the other reason why I hadn't really started therapy earlier, and I understand maybe a lot of you have the same issue, it's because of money. I couldn't really find an affordable option to go to therapy and be able to afford it because I wasn't making any money. So instead, you got to search up, like I was very, very fortunate to find a clinic, right? It is clinic. It's much more affordable. It's way easy to find. Literally all you have to do is find like mental health clinics near me. And I promise you'll have like a list of it. Don't feel bad, by the way, about when you do start therapy and you don't feel fulfilled or you don't feel that something is working. Don't feel bad about saying, hey, this isn't working out. Can we start? Can I find someone else? The therapist isn't going to feel bad. They're not going to take it personally. They're going to understand. They're there to try and help you be a better version of yourself. So speak up. For those of you who are dealing with something really heavy right now, and it seems like there is no way out, I understand you. It's really terrible. It's really difficult. But I can promise you that there is a way out. And it's just going to be, an uphill battle. And it will be an uphill battle for a bit, but you're going to get stronger and things will get better, So just stick with it. If you need help, reach out. I want to thank all of my new viewers. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much. Welcome. I hope you enjoy it. Go check out my earlier videos. If you're a loyal subscriber, thank you so much. There's a lot of you that have been around from the very beginning and are always commenting and liking. And trust me, I read all of the comments. I try and respond to as many as I can. I'm so thankful for you all. Next week, if I'm not mistaken, we might have a guest on. If not, maybe not. Oh, actually, next week we do have a guest, and it's actually two guests. And it's going to be the filmmakers for the documentary called Game Master. It's on Amazon Prime. Definitely have to go check it out. It's amazing. It's about the people who create board games and kind of the things that they deal with. It's a great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to them. They're great people. Go check that out. Thank you again. This has been episode 20. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Tell your friends about it. If you enjoy this podcast, tell your friends about it. Share it with however many people you would like, 1, 2, 17,000, I wouldn't be mad. Thank you again. I'm out of here. I'm going to stop saying because I've said it 17 times just in the last 12 seconds. I love you. I'm out. Peace.